You are listening to Visionaries Wrestling Network, providing your perfect podcast experience.
M is for Mason.
G is for Graham.
B is for Baxter.
And this is the MGB Wrestling Podcast, Episode 1.
Hi, my name is Mason, and here's proof that wrestling fans still live with their parents, my co-host, my dad, Graham.
Alright, Mason, so what you just heard there was part of the original intro for Episode 1. And, you did some of it. There's no B for Bagshaw with Jackson there. And then the last part was your new version as well. And part of that is we decided we're going to rename the episode. So that was the original Episode 1. We decided this is going to be Season 2, Episode 1, because we've already got to a year, and I don't just want to keep on counting upwards. Because I started to lose track after a while. Yeah. Like, when people talk about Episode 34, I don't remember which is which anymore now. So I thought it might be a good idea to do that. And that's pretty much what this episode is going to be today. It's going to be a look back at Episode 1, but it's also going to be our current Episode 1, because we're going to do Season 2 as well. Now, we also was on the Why We Watch pod recently, so we have talked about some of the highlights from MGB for the year, so we're not really going to do that on this episode. Also, the Christmas crackers that Matt put out, he put out like 25 of those. Go check those out too. And also on that 50th episode, we talked about that too, some of the things that we enjoyed the most. We never fact-checked Matt on that one, actually. We got it wrong. It was actually episode 51. We forgot about Benjamin Banks because he was episode 22B. With that being a really long episode, I split it up into two, the regular MGB and then the interview episode, and I totally forgot that in the count, so there was a few more. Now, we're also going to start with, there's two episode 1s originally as well. The very first episode of MGB was actually the Nova Pro. It was A1. And then there was MGB 01 as well. So it was starting to get a little confusing. But yeah, February 14th is officially when the podcast came to be. And I think the first Nova Pro we did review was just a few days after that. And when we recorded, it was only like 4 days after that. So it was kind of crazy when they came out as quickly as they did. So what do you think about making it through to a year then so far?
I really thought that we would start it and then we wouldn't finish it this long. And I didn't think, even if we did make it this long, I didn't think we would we would have a couple listeners and that was it. And so I'm surprised, but I don't know the actual figures, but you told me that there's a decent amount of people that do listen.
There's people who interact with us on Twitter regularly. The regular fans, and you hear me talk about their names. There's also, of course, people who listen who don't interact with us as well, which you just don't know about. I listen to certain podcasts, and I don't talk to them on Twitter at all. So, yeah, it's kind of difficult to know. I do know that, just our first episode that went up on YouTube, because remember, originally we started on YouTube, and that has 150 views. That was episode 1, so who knows? I don't think we certainly get that many on a regular basis, but I'm sure some people just listened in and were like, oh, this wasn't what I thought it was at all. But yeah, don't know. I have no idea how many people it is, but yeah, it's certainly more than I thought it was going to be. I said if we get 10 listeners and half of them your family, will have done well. And we far exceeded that. I don't think we had any aspirations for guests or anything like that either at the time either. So, it's certainly been surprising. I wasn't sure if it would go on for a year. The thing that surprised me most is how quick the year's gone. It kind of really surprised me. I'm like, we've done a year already?
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Yeah, this year absolutely flew by. All right, I'm going to play you a clip now, and this is actually how we first opened when we did our Nova Pro debut, that episode AA1 that I just talked about. Hello, and welcome to MGB Wrestling Podcast, episode A1. Today is going to be a special episode because we're going to talk about Nova Pro's Cupid Chokehold event, which happened on February 17th, 2018. In general, we're probably going to be talking more about WWE, probably on a Saturday or a Sunday, and we're going to make it more for a child's audience. We found that most wrestling podcasts are aimed more for adults, so specifically that's what we're going to do. Now, the MGB, we'll talk a little bit about the name right now. The M stands for Mason, which is my son, who's going to be my co-host. Do you want to say hi, Mason?
Hi.
Okay, Mason is 10 years old, and he came to me just 5 days ago with the idea of, hey, we should set up our own wrestling podcast. So today is going to be probably very amateurish, This is more for our benefit, so we can try working out how to use a microphone, how to set up a microphone, how to edit a podcast, how to put it together, how to upload it. All those things that we had literally no idea how to do 5 days ago, and some of those things we still don't really know how to do. The G in MGB is Graham, that's me. I'm 40 plus years old, so one of the things we thought would be interesting is the difference between the two generations. And the B stands for Bagshaw, which is our last name. So this is going to be a father and son podcast, and we're going to be talking about, like I said, things hopefully that's suitable for children to listen to as well. Because we did find it's very difficult to find podcasts for Mason to listen to. So that was our very first intro. It was me talking a lot, and it was me apologising a lot, because we didn't know what we were doing at all. And I just wanted to make sure, hey, look, we don't know what we're doing, but we're just going to put this out. Anything that caught your ear while listening to that again?
I hated that, and I'm not. If I was listening to a podcast and I wasn't on it, I probably would have turned off the podcast.
Which part didn't you like?
I just didn't like that. When
you came in,
hello? the way that I said hi, and the way that we based it towards like only children. We said that we should have like explained it. It's like children can listen to it. It's for adults too.
That was actually one of the things, and that was what I was going to pick up on as well. It was partly because it was for podcasts, because you didn't like it that there wasn't many podcasts for you to listen to. But the phrase that I came up with between this episode and the actual MGB 01 was a PG podcast for wrestling fans of all ages. And that was really important, actually, because we were suddenly limiting ourselves to just children. I was like, why would we do that? There's no reason to do that. It was a podcast for everybody, but that was a really key phrase that we actually changed.
And the fact that we barely even knew what we were doing, and then the fact that you were listening to two podcasters that were clueless and what is this and what is that? I don't know. What should I write down? Should I write a whole page of notes or just a half a page of notes?
And actually, I listened to a bit more on that. I didn't take any notes for that first event on Nova Pro either. And I apologise for that as well later on in the show, because I listened to a few more minutes. And I said, I'm glad that you were there, because you were able to fill in. I was like, oh, I don't remember that. And you were like, oh, I remember this. So that was kind of something that was actually really important as well. But yeah, we literally had no idea.
Yeah.
We'd never planned for anything like that before. And I also thought it was funny as well. I listed my age as 40 plus. I know Blade Job thought that was funny at the time as well. I don't know why I just didn't say, well, it was 42 then, but it's 43 now. But yeah. And obviously you're not 10 anymore either.
And I didn't like the fact that I was like, hi. I sounded like I was so nervous to just say hi.
Well, I was kind of worried as well, because I didn't want to make sure you said something. Because I'm like, this is supposed to be your podcast, and I've done all the speaking so far. So we should have broken that up a little bit better as well. MGB. I did actually at one point want to change what the little letters stood for. And we've had different ones, like when Matt's been on, M is for Matt, or B is for Blade Job, and different things like that. B is for Benjamin. B is for Benjamin, there you go. I actually looked at one point as Mason's Guests and Buddies podcast. So, and we could get, that was obviously much further in, because we didn't know we were going to get guests at that time. And I actually just realised something as well. You haven't had a friend on this yet, either. I know we talked about it at one point, but it sounds like you don't really have many friends that watch wrestling to the level that you do, either.
No, I don't have any that watch as much as me, but I do have some that occasionally watch Raw. My best friend, Harlem, he watches one every month or two.
Oh, okay, so he knows the characters, but he doesn't know all the stories.
He barely even knows anybody. I remember he didn't even remember who the Usos were, or...
Oh, wow.
He doesn't know who AJ Styles was, so he knows a couple people, but not too many.
And I guess I was lucky. My co-worker, who I work with in class, my co-teacher, he's a big wrestling fan, so we used to talk. But outside that, with the exception of you, I didn't really used to talk with many people about wrestling either. So that's definitely one thing that's changed. Now I'm on Twitter and I interact with people. I know you don't get that side of it yet, but yeah. I thought we should take a look back at all our guests as well. And this can be sort of like our little roll call. I know we mentioned some of the people already. Episode 4 was Jackson's first appearance. Episodes, obviously, he's a regular now.
Yeah.
And that was something we didn't think of at all with MGB. Who knew that Jackson was going to be on the podcast? And that changed pretty quickly straight away.
He fits in with the B.
He fits in with the B for Bagshaw, so that works fine. Episode 6 was Matt Willis. Episode 8 was our Benjamin Banks interview. Who knew we were going to be interviewing a wrestler within our first 10 episodes? I never thought that.
And the fact is, we just had somebody new every other episode at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were doing pretty good. Episode 13, we had JRT from the Blade Job show. Episode 14, Matt Willis came back. Episode 18 to 20 were special episodes because they're the ones we were out in England for. So no guests on those ones, I guess. I know Matt put in an appearance right at the end for one of those. Episode 21 and episode 22 were the two episodes you didn't appear in when you lost your podcast for a little bit. So we have Matt Willis as guest host that. And that started something weird as well. That started Good Cop, Bad Cop. That wouldn't have existed either if it wasn't for MGB either. Episode 23, Is It Over Yet? They appeared on the Are You Smarter challenge. And I missed that episode 22B, which I just talked about. Benjamin Banks for a second time. We talked to him again after finding out a little bit more information and having to go and see him a few more times. Episode 25 I listed was special. That was the very last episode of the segment, Are You Smarter Than a Fourth Grader? Because you moved into fifth grade at that point. Often we used to do a challenge. It used to be you versus Jackson anyway. But we quickly changed it into Are You Smarter Than a 4-year-old? And episode 26, Dennis Farrell was with us, where we did Dinobots or Wrestlers. Yeah. So we kind of stole his idea from the Wrestling Perspectives podcast. And Jackson was suddenly became a more regular member then. Episode 27, Paul Tolley. Episode 29, James Vukmirovich. And actually, episode 30, James Vukmirovich, because we actually interviewed him as well. Yeah. And we talked to him for so long, I said, hey, well, let's put the interview on a whole separate podcast. A really interesting guy to talk to. I would definitely like to talk to James more in the future as well. Episode 31, Scott Perkins. So you just said we had a period where it was like every other episode. We had a huge run of people then when we came back after the summer. I can't believe
we had this many people.
Oh, it was a lot. Episode 34, we had Josh Fuller. We had that interview when we went to Crab Wrestling. Episode 38, we had Darren Kirkby. And episode 39, Mike Aaron. And they both did the Are You Smarter Than a quiz as well. Scott did everything. He was the guest host. He reviewed. I think Darren and Mike are going to come back at some point in season 2. And they're going to review with us as well. But it's a good chance for them to come on twice. And it was convenient after we just talked to them as well. And I also have a couple more people on here that we interviewed as well. I missed 2 people.
Ugly Ducklings.
Ugly Ducklings as one. And I forgot one as well. Ricky Huron as well. I think that's his last name. We interviewed him because he said he wanted to be interviewed and we didn't know idea how to do it. And I got that little mic and we interviewed him in the middle of an intermission, I think. Mm-hmm. I think he just interacted with Josh at that point and Faye as well. Yeah, I think he had a shouting match with Josh Fuller. So we interviewed him as well. I'm impressed. That's a lot of guests for first season. So I thought that was pretty good. I hope we got everyone. I hope I didn't miss anyone. I tried to look through all the episode notes. As far as I can tell, that was all the guests that we had. I guess we had a partial interview with Bro Keller as well. Yeah. Because he came in on Josh Fuller's interview a little bit as well. But for this episode, I wanted to merge the old episode with the new episode. So, Season 1, Episode 1. This is the regular MGB. All right, Mason. What can you remember about what segments we had in our very first episode?
I think
it's like a little bonus quiz
Impact,
for you here.
I know.
We reviewed Impact Wrestling, yeah.
Are You Smarter Than a 4-year-old?
Are You Smarter Than a fourth grader? Correct.
I sort of we didn't, we're not doing the one with Nova Pro, right?
We didn't do Nova Pro. No, because we'd already done that previous week.
That was the other one.
Correct.
That was the other, okay. Raw, Smackdown?
Yep.
I feel like there's more.
You got special segments that you've missed. There's 3 special segments that you missed.
The tweet.
Tweet of the week.
Yep, tweet of the week.
And we're back again. I don't think we've ever had the doorbell go before. I don't know if you could hear that on the recording. Considering we've been going for a year.
Yeah.
I don't ever think that happened before. Mm-hmm. All right, you said tweet of the week. Correct.
I remember podcast of the week. I know there's probably one more segment, but I'm just forgetting.
It's not an obvious one. It was just This Week in Wrestling, which gave me an opportunity to talk about something that came up, which is kind of like the open agenda item now on Good Cop, Bad Cop a little bit. So you actually did pretty good there. Now, that was the first one. What about other segments that we've tried over the year?
Oh, we tried following the people on Twitter and then reviewing that, but we never got to do that.
We followed some. Mason's WWE hierarchy update. He used to follow, like, Vince, the general managers, and now there is no general managers, so even if we'd kept that going, that would have disappeared now, probably.
Yeah.
With the exception of Vince.
I want to try the one where we follow a wrestler, but we
never got around to doing that one either. All right, which ones did we do, though? Can you remember any more?
Are You Smarter Than a 4-year-old?
Technically, that's right. Are You Smarter Than a 4-year-old? Yeah, that was episode 26.
I know there's more.
All right. There was Mason Takes.
Oh, yeah.
Which is when I gave you something that came up and I asked you for your opinion on it, which is kind of a bit like what happened in this week in wrestling. Mason's Wrestling Birthdays.
Oh yeah.
We looked who came up for the week, and you had to research them and then tell us a little bit about them. These were all from episode 15 so far. Episode 17, we had Brock's Twitter update. I think that was a throwaway comment that we mentioned that he doesn't do anything, and then if he did, I was going to update it. So that was episode 17.
Didn't you say there was a tweet, but you just didn't say it yet?
I don't know. I don't remember. I used to like doing that. That was good. Episode 18 was question and answer with Mason, but that was kind of just because we were going out for the summer. We did that for 3 episodes. There was also the challenge to Mason with a double tap challenge. I don't know if that was really a segment, but it was certainly something that came up. Episode 21 was Matt Takes, because you weren't available, so I had to give Matt an opinion. And then you got the last one, episode 26, Are You Smarter Than a 4-Year-Old? And I guess we've stuck pretty much close to that after that. Once we decided that we were happy with the quiz, and we've just been pretty much reviewing after that. I
remember when we'd say that we never quite followed up. MLW.
That's true, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, so that's good. Podcast of the Week is actually now a spin-off. I actually really enjoyed doing that, and I said it was something I might do and put in the episode notes, and I guess I never told you this. I recorded the 3rd episode of, it's called, well, the Twitter handle is @3rdpod, and it's called Third Time's a Charm. And I listened to 3 episodes of a podcast, and then I give them a review. If I still like it after 3 episodes. If I don't, then you won't hear about it at all. So I'm still kind of doing that a little bit as well. So that was something I used to like doing, but we decided it didn't fit in with MGB, and I was okay with that. I just put them out on YouTube. They only take 5 minutes each. So, we said we're going to try and match up what we used to do with what we're doing now. So, match 1, I did podcast of the week to begin with. That's really weird. It was a first round. I don't know why I decided. That should be something. We eventually moved it to the end. So, in match 1, scheduled for?
1-4.
See, we don't do that anymore either.
No.
Did you notice that? We had podcast of the week. Any ideas what you chose? That's going to be tough.
I remember I obviously chose Matt a couple times.
He wasn't doing podcasts at this point.
Oh.
He didn't come back. His first podcast return was episode 6, so he wasn't doing podcasts.
All
right, why don't we just have a listen
Kelsey was
then?
one.
Why don't we just I'm just talking for episode 1 right now.
Oh, okay.
So let's have a listen, and then we can find out what we actually did on episode 1. Okay, so to begin with, we have Jerry the King Lawler versus Petey Williams in match 1, which is scheduled for
1-4.
in a Podcasts of the Week match. So I get to listen to podcasts first, and the ones that came out this week related to Jeff Jarrett being announced into the Hall of Fame. So the first one I listened to was one called Dinner with the King, which features Glenn Moore and Jerry the King Lawler himself. And actually yesterday, on Friday, I listened to Wrestling Perspectives podcast, which featured Dennis Farrell and Petey Williams. Now, I can't ask you to comment on these ones yet, Mason, because I know you haven't had a chance to listen to them. I'm going to put over Dinner with the King, and the reason I'm going to give Dinner with the King the advantage is Jerry Lawler actually got to talk to Jeff Jarrett on the podcast itself. Petey Williams is good friends with Uncle Pete, as he calls him, but he was just talking about him rather than to him. So if you got time, check them both out, but if you're going to go with one, I would suggest Dinner with the King. Now, Mason, you're obviously a little bit behind me, so which podcast did you really like this week then that you listened to?
I like the Brady Roberts BWP Wrestling podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It was about it was about a wrestler who started his first ever match at age 18, I think.
Oh, wow. And I listened to this about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was now, so I tend to have forgotten some of the details, so you're going to have to try and remind me. Was there a particular story that he told in that, perhaps, that sticks out for you?
My favorite one when Brady Roberts and a few of his other friends were driving in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he heard that Raw was on in LA, so he quickly drove to LA, and he snuck into Raw with all of him and his friends with his wrestling gear on. And then one of the wrestlers came and said, "Hey, you're not on the roster." And the security took him out. And he saw a wrestler he knew coming into the stadium. He's like, "Where are you going?" And then he said, "We got kicked out of Raw. We snuck in." He was like, "Whoa."
So, anyway, that's a little insight. Check that one out at Real BW Podcast. And I got to say, that's certainly becoming one of my favorite podcasts. I know those guys release quite a lot of content. They tend to do nice short sections, 15 minutes sometimes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. which is great for that commute in the morning. So, yeah, certainly check out those guys. Very knowledgeable and certainly one of our favorite podcasts right now. All right, Mason. So what do you make of that then?
I don't like it again.
Why not?
I just didn't like the how I said and I didn't talk very well, and I was like, he traveled to L.A.
I still thought, and I didn't pick up on how much I said when I'm recording until like a few episodes in. I was appalled. I was like, oh my gosh, I used to edit them all out because it used to take forever. I'm surprised a year later I still say so much in between. I hadn't really even thought about it. Even with knowing I do it, I still think that I do that. I like the fact on that one, actually, that rather than just announcing the podcast of the week, I used to have 2 separate ones. And it used to be like a real match. So I'd announce the 2 contestants, and then we actually had a winner.
Yep.
I didn't do that for very long, but I actually think that's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
Now, I feel kind of bad. Wrestling Perspectives podcast is one of my favorite ones. I never gave them podcast of the week. It wasn't until we got to episode 26 when Dennis came on, and I realized, I was like, oh, you guys have never been so we did make them eventually podcast of the week.
I made them
podcast
of the week.
So that was kind of bad, but...
I remember the BWP, they don't do anything anymore, I don't think.
I haven't heard from those guys in months.
That was the first podcast I ever listened to. I really liked it.
Me too.
And then they just don't release anything.
I don't know what happened. They joined a new network, and I've kind of looked online, and they don't really... Yeah, I don't know what's happening. It might just be that they're busy. But yeah, like I say, the other ones are still out there. Dinner with the King still going strong. I don't listen to that every episode now, but I do listen to it occasionally. And Wrestling Perspectives podcast, and that's moved on to like a new network as well. They're on radio. But yeah, interesting how everyone sort of changed within that year's period. Oh yeah, because
I remember I made the Duhcast one of them too.
Mm-hmm.
I remember.
Yeah, that's another one that doesn't exist anymore either. Now, while we're talking about Dennis, I should definitely give him a shout out. He's actually instrumental in a few things with this. He reached out to us on episode 1, and I know before we did episode 1, and offered some help, and he even gave you a shout out as well, which was really good of him to do that, because he's a famous broadcaster. And he's also responsible for the joke that we've used at the start of the podcast for a year now. Wrestling fans still live with their parents. My 10-year-old son, Mason. He gave us that basic suggestion for that, and I was like, I like that. And when I look back on YouTube on episode 1, somebody said, oh, I like the fact that you joke that, or point out the fact that wrestling fans still live with their parents. But I thought that was a good little joke to do. And he's definitely responsible for the Are You Smarter Than a 4-Year-Old round. Things like wrestler or cricket player, that's totally stolen from his show. They did a very similar one with Petey's wife to see if she knew, because she doesn't know anything about wrestling. But I thought it was perfect so Jackson could play along, and he can play on a level playing field, because it's a bit of guesswork as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, match 2 was a review of Raw, but we're actually recording on Monday because we've got a snow day, so this hasn't even been shown yet. However, Mason, we can go back to what your top 3 moments were. Your third moment was Miz attacks Finn Balor from behind. Your moment 2 was Bray Wyatt versus Matt Hardy. And your number 1 moment was Miz runs into the entrance and Braun Strowman chases him. My top 3 moments were moment of silence for the victims of the school shootings in Florida. I didn't even realize this on the time. That was actually on Valentine's Day as well.
Oh.
We were so busy, obviously, setting up the podcast, and I was on Twitter asking for help, and setting up a Twitter account for you, and a YouTube account, and looking at microphones online. I don't think I even realized that until the following day, that had actually happened there. So, yeah, that was also on Valentine's Day, so that was something I'd totally forgotten about. Number 2 was the Ronda Rousey promo. A special look at Ronda Rousey, featuring wrestling clips. This is when she's still training. Remember, this is before WrestleMania, so they've just announced that she's coming in. She just pointed to the sign. Remember, she interrupted, I think it was Oscar and Charlotte?
Yeah.
And that was about it. 1.2 million views, so the heat around Ronda was really good at that time. And my number 1 moment was Braun kicking out the Miz out of the ring and taking out the Miz-Taraj at the same time.
Oh, yeah, the Miz-Taraj is still going.
B-Team, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
And also at that one, we used to look at we used to read out the top 10 moments as well.
Oh, yeah.
From YouTube, and I think I talk about that one possibly a little bit later. Now, you did say you wanted to review MLW about 2 months ago, and we had some notes for one, and then it didn't fit in because we went to so many independent events.
Yeah,
this
I've
month.
had notes for 2 of them for it was 3 shows combined 2 times, but then I just didn't get to
We just didn't get to do it because we went out to so many different events. So let's start season 2 that way by reviewing episode 44 in match 2. All right, Mason. What was your third moment then from MLW?
My third moment is, I'm so surprised that DJ Z, Myron Reed, equals 343 pounds combined.
They're very light.
Yes,
when you
they're
look at,
170 pounds each.
yeah, you look at 205 Live and it's 35 pounds less than that. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. They used to be, when I used to watch British wrestling, there used to be people that light, and now it's just all sort of scaled up. WWE was all about having the biggest possible guys, and some of the lighter ones tended to get lost in the mix a little bit. But no, really good wrestlers, and we saw DJZ recently at the Flying V Theatre production, and we saw him at Nova Pro about a year and a half ago. He's really good. Okay, what about your second moment?
My second moment is Gringo must get kicked in the dingo a lot because it rhymes.
Who?
Gringo.
Oh, Gringo.
There's a follow-up one on Facebook.
Yes, I think you mentioned that in the match, but that's still one of my favourite clips from... I was going to put that one in at the end. I was going to ask you if you had like a favourite moment. I love that moment where you come with Eric Royal. To me, the reason I like that, because you keep saying, what's so funny about that? The reason it's funny is, when you're talking, you know exactly what you're talking about, and I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
As soon as I start talking, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And it goes like that through the whole entire interview. There's not 1 second that we know what each other's talking about. And then right at the end, I mention suplexes, and you end with Eric does a suplex. Now, I think the reason I like it is, it reminds me of Who's On First.
Yeah.
Because they each know what they're talking about at the same time, but the other has no idea what they're talking about. Like, who's on first? I'm asking you who's on first. They both know what they mean at the same time, but the confusion between the two is perfect. That's our Albert and Costello moment as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right, anything else from that match, or just the fact that Gringo rhymed with Dingo?
Yeah, that.
When he said that, yeah, I'm not going to have the same moments as you, yeah, you're right, I didn't have that one at all. All right, number one moment.
The Sandman went through 8 cans of beer during his entrance.
He did, and I don't really remember the Sandman. I recognize the name. I knew he was from ECW, but I certainly didn't.
It was kind of
era.
obvious that it was going to be somebody from ECW because Tommy Dreamer's from ECW.
It wasn't just that. It was the fact that they were appearing for the first time in that ECW arena, the original ECW arena.
Oh yeah, and Blue Meanie was under there. We just saw Blue Meanie.
We did. We just watched the '99 Royal Rumble, and Blue Meanie was in that as well. So I like how all these things sort of come together. We have things from episode 1 appearing in this episode 1, and things that we just watched, and they all come back. I like all that stuff. All right, my 3 moments I'm going to keep pretty short. Lucha Brothers promo. It said other promos were mentioned, which is really unusual. Normally you don't talk about other organizations. They were like, so are you guys going to join WWE, Impact, AEW? And they said they're staying at MLW. And then a couple of days later they announced they're joining AEW. Now, I don't know. Their first match isn't until May, so perhaps they are staying at MLW for 2 months. I don't know. Number 2, I had the same thing. I had Sandman joining Tommy Dreamer. I had the fact that the fans were filming selfies while they were getting beers poured into their mouth. And the crowd was singing the Metallica song as well, Enter Sandman, which I thought was really cool as well. I definitely like that. I did look up a little bit about Sandman while they were doing all those intros because it went on a long time. He actually held the ECW World Heavyweight Championship a record 5 times. Oh. So that was like the biggest name they could have possibly pulled. I didn't realise he was as significant a figure as that as we were watching it. And my number 1 moment was the kick from Puma King. Oh, in the crowd, and the commentator said, was that a gum? Was that gum or a tooth? I thought that so many times recently when we were watching Nova Pro. That's a really cool effect when you spit the gum up in the air, and it does look like a tooth. Yeah. If you don't know, that first time I was sure that was a tooth. And then now it's like, well, clearly it's just gum. Now, I told you about Puma King because I said he's going to be facing, he's going to be at Nova Pro. I looked it up. He's facing Logan Easton Lareau.
Okay.
The one at WrestleMania. Now, the one that we got wrong, and I couldn't quite remember, because we were like, wasn't that Ricochet?
Yeah.
That's Prince Puma.
Oh.
So that's how we kind of half got it there. Puma King, Prince Puma. They're both royalty. They both got Puma in the name. So I could see how we actually got confused a little bit about that. Now, you probably won't remember this part, and I certainly didn't. We actually put up a poll on Twitter for who picked the best 3 moments.
Yeah, I remember that.
I don't know what we were thinking. We had no fans at all at that point, and we're trying to get people to vote on it. And I don't know what I was thinking, because it was obvious you were going to win anyway. So it was totally pointless in doing that. So I did mention again where we did the top 10 as well, but we stopped doing that. There was a couple of reasons that wasn't a good idea. One, it was just what WWE liked. We wanted to talk about what we liked. And also, it was pretty obvious after a while, or it was to me. The number 1 moment was whatever was the last thing that happened. So if it became a competition to pick the best, what their best moments were, that wasn't necessarily going to make for an entertaining podcast. So we got rid of that segment. All right, match 3 was, are you smarter than a 4th grader? So how are we going to do that now? Well, we're going to play, your special challenger for today, Mason, is 10-year-old Mason. I'm going to play the clip. Well, I'm going to let you give the answers first to the very first quiz that I gave on episode 1. And then we can listen to see how you do. I'm actually going to reverse it. So you're going to give your answers, but when people listen to it, I'm going to play the original clip first, and then we'll see if you can do better. Okay? All right, so the original quiz, I'm guessing you probably don't remember what the very first one was. Something that's been popping up recently, actually, with CN Almas.
Yeah.
Andrade.
Okay.
Names being shortened.
Yep, I remember that.
It was a really short one. This was only 6 questions long. Okay, in our third match today, scheduled for...
1 fall.
Are you smarter than a 4th grader? So, we obviously can't use the other grade. Next year, I don't know what we're going to do, Mason, for copyright reasons. But right now, as you're in 4th grade. And this match features Mason versus you, the listener. So, the number 7 moment from Raw this week was actually Titus Worldwide beating The Bar. And one wrestler appeared with a name slightly shorter than normal. And he was simply announced as Apollo. Now, I'm going to read out all 5 names, so if you want to play along at home, you can listen, pause the podcast, and then restart when you're ready for the answers. 60% is a pass in our school system where Mason goes to. So, Mason, you're going to need 3 out of 5, okay? But to give you a chance, there's also an extra credit question as well. So, if you want to play along, pause the podcast now. And Mason, here you go. Here's your first one then. So, I don't know if you noticed in the match, he was just introduced as Apollo, whereas normally he's known, of course, as...
Apollo Crews.
All right, so there's your first one. Now, also from the Gauntlet match, and we already mentioned him earlier, Elias.
Elias Sampson.
Okay, so 2 out of 2 so far, so you're doing good. Smackdown, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, featured Big E Langston, so you're already going to pass on this one. Number 4, in that same match we talked about with Apollo, was Cesaro. But what was Cesaro's full name? I gave you the nice ones at the start. And I have to admit, I'd forgotten this one. Actually, no, sorry, I knew this one. I'd forgotten the next one. Cesaro's his last name.
Oh.
So it's his first name. Oh. I don't think you know this one. All right, that's a fail on that one. Antonio Cesaro.
Oh.
Okay, and you've only been watching wrestling for 2 years, so I think he's always been Cesaro when we've watched. And I think this is why number 5 is going to be difficult for the same reason. Rusev. Every day's Rusev Day. What was Rusev's first name, though?
Oh, God.
I didn't know this, so I don't think you're going to. But sometimes you read things that I don't know. Are you going to pass? All right, this one was Alexander Rusev.
Oh.
So you passed already, but to give you some extra credit, and I didn't know this one either, Neville. We haven't seen him for a while.
Neville?
Yeah, Neville's actually his last
first
name.
name?
No, Neville's his last name. I thought it was his first name. All right, so I don't feel so bad now about this one then either.
By any chance, is it Graham?
It's not Graham
Okay.
Neville, no, but being from England, I guess that's probably not a bad guess. Adrian Neville.
Oh.
I didn't know that one at all. So anyway, so you managed to get 3 out of 5. We won't count the extra credit question in this time to give you a chance. All right, first one, Apollo.
Apollo Crews.
Correct. Elias.
Oh, okay. I know what it. Oh my gosh. Elias Sampson.
Correct.
Okay.
Number 3, Big E.
Big E Langston.
Correct. Number 4, Cesaro.
Antonio Cesaro.
Number 5, Rusev.
And Alexander Rusev.
And number 6, Neville.
Adrian Neville.
All right. So, as our fans will already know because they listened, originally you got 4 out of 6, and today you got 6 out of 6.
Yay.
I got 6 out of 6 today. I know Desh Kirkby got 6 out of 6 a year ago. It does seem pretty easy now, right? You ran through those answers straight away. And I'd actually forgotten the Rusev one. I remember Cesaro was one of the questions, and I remember Neville was a question. I'd forgot Rusev was a question, but I knew straight away it was Alexander Rusev. I think that shows how much we've improved in a year. All right, so you just heard the clip. Obviously, our fans listened to this the other way around. Any thoughts on that?
I didn't know Rusev Day's been going for over a year now.
I guess so, yeah. You sort of forget little things like that.
Yeah.
I was impressed with how quickly you ran through those names, actually. You actually got those so much quicker when you listened to the speed between the two of them, so, okay. Alright, match 4 was a review of Smackdown, and we're not doing that for reasons we mentioned earlier. However, we can look back at our top 3 moments from a year ago. Your third moment was the Bludgeon Brothers, who I think both of them are coming back now, actually. I think they're both just about back from injury. Certainly Harper we've seen recently. Number 2, a Deep Six. And number 1 was the phenomenal forearm from AJ Styles.
So my third moment was just Bludgeon Brothers.
That's what I have written down here. I don't remember what you said. You obviously said the match, and then you probably talked about it. I just had the highlights of what you wrote down. In my episode notes, I always asked you ahead of time, because I had to tell you what position they actually were.
Yeah, and AJ Styles' phenomenal forearm.
Yeah, you actually had the 9th best moment, one that wasn't in the top 10, and the 3rd best moment. Because I had those written down, because I had to tell you how we did. My 3rd moment was the Riot Squad winning the women's match with a Riot kick to Becky Lynch. I also had the Bludgeon Brothers who were dominating in their match. And 2 end of days from Corbin, 1 on Sami Zayn and 1 on Kevin Owens. You actually picked the wrong finishing move, actually, for Baron Corbin. The one I had was number 1. Yours wasn't even in the top 10. But hey, doesn't matter. We talked about what we wanted to talk about, right? Alright, match 5. It was this week in wrestling news, and actually Nova Pro news as well. Singles match featuring just news from Nova Pro Wrestling. Now, often if I find wrestling news, I'll have it, but with our special episode being Nova Pro Wrestling, if we find something on that, then we're certainly going to try and give them a plug. And I don't know if you realise, it's only 2 weeks, actually, until the next one, even though we went last week. So, all fans of Nova Pro Wrestling, definitely go check them out on Twitter, at VA Wrestling. And they've actually started to announce, there's 2 events, actually. There's the tryout show, which is called Sink or Swim. And then in the evening, they've got an all-female card, which is called Ripper to Shreds. So the news this week that I saw was they've started to announce some of those tryouts, and they've announced several people who are going to appear in it. I took a picture, so I'm going to show Mason right now. My favourite one so far is somebody called the Grimy Scots. They're dressed in what looks like kilts, although to me it looks more like tablecloths. Any comment, Mason?
It's weird that they're called the Grimy Scots, and there's an American flag in the background.
I think that's just the venue where they're at.
I know, but still, they should have. I don't know.
And it does say they're actually from Maryland as well. So unless there's a Scotland, Maryland that I don't know about, then. But anyway, so that's something to look forward to. And also, they did announce that at the Sink or Swim tryouts, the main event is actually going to be Logan Easton Lareau versus Safety First Tim Donst. I actually just changed your profile picture on the MGB Twitter feed to a picture you had with Tim Donst. So if we're big Tim Donst fans, so I thought that was certainly worth mentioning as well. Tickets are available. I think last time I looked, 2/3 of the front row sold out. So make sure you get those tickets if that's something that you want to do. All right, Mason, besides the fact that you can hear me pushing keys on my keyboard and you can hear papers rustling, and we've paid no attention to outside sounds at that point, what do you make of that segment?
Okay.
That's it?
Yeah.
There's that in-depth analysis on MGB.
Like, no words for it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't, like, good either.
Okay, I was thinking more historically. What happened there? Oh, I forgot to click pause.
This is going in the podcast, right?
I was thinking more historically. So the fact that we actually just saw the Grimy Scots only a few weeks ago. We got to see them at EWA, and after that we got to see them the following week as well at the Flying V Theatre as well. Also a few changes actually on Twitter since then. The 2 grimy lads from Edinburgh, Scotland, always willing to take the low road in the squared circle. Location is now listed as Edinburgh, Scotland as well, so that's changed. And they actually weren't even on Twitter on episode 1. They didn't join until March 2018. So they were really just starting out at that point, I'm guessing. So I really enjoyed seeing those guys. I thought that was, at the time, we were kind of making fun of them a little bit, but I just liked the fact that they were British, and they had that British name to them. And I guess we should continue then for this episode as we run in parallels. In Nova Pro news for this week, Ain't That a Kick in the Head is going to be on February 15th at the Annandale Volunteer Fire Department. Tickets are on sale. There are still a few first row seats, I believe, but mostly GA now. And there's going to be Nova Pro debuts for Joey Ryan. Mason doesn't know who Joey Ryan is yet. Anthony Green and Chris Statlander. Alright, match 6. We gave our top moments from Impact Wrestling, as you called earlier. Your moments were, number 3, The Machine Brian Cage with the drill claw against Hunter Law in 1 minute and 7 seconds. His debut was against John Cruz in 1 minute and 10 seconds. Moment 2 was Grandma Jenny, which was something I'd totally forgotten about. And moment 1 was Petey Williams versus Matt Seidel. Petey tries for a Canadian Destroyer, but Seidel wins after reversing it. And I actually had almost the reverse. My number 3 moment was Petey Williams. My number 1 moment was Brian Cage. And my second moment was Super TK3 from EC3, and then Johnny Impact kicking out of the 1%. So obviously EC3 isn't on Impact anymore either.
I don't remember Grandma Jenny.
That was something to do with the Abyss story. Except he wasn't Abyss. He was the what was his name? He was like the lawyer guy.
Yeah.
Somebody Parks.
That was his brother. That was Abyss's brother.
They were the same person. Well, I thought they were, unless I missed part of the story. I'm
that
sure
was his brother.
That's what he said.
Because Grado, he said he would have a match with him, and then the guy came out and then said, "You signed a contract not to fight me, but my brother Abyss." That's what he said, and then Abyss stood right next to him.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I missed part of it. Grandma Jenny came out to try and protect her grandson. She was a really old lady.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. Somebody probably knocked her over or something, but it was kind of funny that she would even walk into the ring. So, anyway, we haven't done Impact in such a long time. So we decided we would go back and do that as well because we had some time this week. So, top 3 moments then from Friday, February the 8th, Mason. All right, what's your third moment?
I kind of have a lot.
Do you want me to pause the podcast? Go ahead, just give me whatever you got. Because we can always do both.
Okay.
Matt Willis never sticks to 3 anyway when you ask him to anyway, so go ahead. You can give me as many as you want. Give me your 5th moment then.
My 5th moment is Troy jumps off the top rope to knees to the guy's face.
Okay. I thought when we talked about this, you only had 2 at one point, and you're like, quick, let me find a 3rd.
And then we watched the 5 moments that we already watched, and then I found a couple.
You found a couple of extra ones?
Yeah.
All right, what about your 4th moment then?
The Neto Dedo thing or whatever that the Lucha Brothers do,
Okay.
it means no fear in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
It's because they were like translating, and then it said, when they did that,
Oh, it said on the bottom?
it said no fear.
Oh, okay.
And my 3rd moment is the fear factor spike is beautiful.
It is. I actually have... Do you want to tell us who actually did that then?
It was the Lucha Brothers. So he gets him like a kind of like a pile driver, except his legs are like tucked in. And so Phoenix jumps off onto the guys behind, and
On
then
the top rope, yeah.
yeah, and then he drives him in.
And I have that as part of my number 1 moment as well. So, yeah, I thought that was really cool too. All right, number 2?
My number 2 moment is the guy, when he was announcing who the winner was, he said, "Here's your wiener." I was just writing down a note, and then it said, "Here's your wiener."
I didn't even pick up on that. And I was like, what are you talking about? And you're like, play it back again. And I played it back. It did. That is no mistake. I'm going to try and put the clip in. If you want to find it yourself, it's the highlight. It's the top 5 moments, I think, right?
Yep.
The top 5 moments, and it's about 4 minutes and 45 seconds in. I'm going to try and post a clip so people can hear. But it just had an accent, and it was clearly supposed to be winner. But yeah, the person who was the women's match, and it was nice. Here's the wiener. It was like, wow. When I listened to it for a second time as well, I was like, did I just mishear the first time? I'm like, no, he definitely said wiener rather than winner. But no, that's not your number 1 moment. I'm shocked that's not your number 1.
My number 1 moment is a joke moment.
Oh, it is? Well, I don't remember this one either.
Okay, my number 1 moment is I like the color of the guardrail. When I told you that I only had 2 moments, you said what? And I said that you probably don't have the moments I do. You said that one of my moments would probably be that I like the color of the guardrail, and so I put that down as a joke.
I did. You always come up. You used to come up with some of the most bizarre ones. When you say that I haven't got the same as you, I'm like, oh, probably not.
But you were laughing even harder about the wiener.
Oh, I was, because I didn't even pick up on that
twice
first time.
as hard.
Oh, I was, and I said that's kind of a shame. If you'd have mentioned that live on the thing, and I wouldn't have known, I probably wouldn't have known though. So you kind of had to tell me to listen, but. Oh no, I was dying on that. No, you come up with, and that's part of the appeal of this podcast, Mason, that you pick up on different things that other people don't pick up on. But yeah, no, I know that. I was just trying to think, what crazy thing could you possibly come up with that I hadn't thought of? And I just noticed that the guardrail was blue, because they're normally black, so I was like, that's probably your moment. You drop that on me sometimes, I'm like, okay. Because I have no response to that.
And the ring looks bigger.
That was interesting. Yeah, that ring did look bigger. That was definitely for sure. When they ran from corner to corner, it seemed to take them a lot longer than normal. All right, my 3 moments. My 3rd moment was I like Dark Alley. I knew she'd sort of switched. I knew she was with Su Yung now. But I thought that was really impressive. And two of those people we've actually seen in this year as well. Jordan Grace, lots at Nova Pro. And we did see Su Yung at Fury Pro as well. So I thought that was kind of good. Second moment was the double stunner from Willie Mack. And then there was also the double cutter from Rich Swann. We had talked about combination moves recently. You talked about it. It was Natalia who did the double sharpshooter, and we talked about Ronda Rousey putting the two-peat bellas on her back and slamming them.
Mm-hmm. So double armbar.
Double armbar. So I thought that fitted in nicely with that story as well. And I agreed with you. I thought the Fear Factor package spike looks really impressive. And we just don't get to watch Impact very much, so it probably was slightly new to us. I also like the reverse Hurricane Rana as well. I made a note of that. I thought that looked really cool as well. That whole match was brilliant. Mm-hmm. I was really into watching the Lucha Brothers, and we just got to see them on MLW as well.
Yeah.
So we actually watched MLW first, and then we watched Impact. So we actually kind of got to see them back to back. And you commented in that match, because on MLW, Conan was their manager.
Yeah, and now he's
But on this one, they were fighting LAX, and he was the manager of LAX. So in terms of continuity, obviously through the different brands, there was a slightly confusing story going on there. All right, match 7, tweet of the week from 2008. This was at John Thorne, AIW. Tom Lawler clotheslining Dominic Guarini so hard he broke his own arm tonight was a beeping. Oh, what a beeping legend!
Oh, I remember that.
And because you're like, how can he break his arm? I was like, I have no idea. I don't think I ever saw that clip in the end.
I want to watch it.
But the reason I liked it is because you said you didn't remember who Tom Lawler was. Tom Lawler is the current champion at MLW.
Oh, that's
Dirty
filthy.
Tom Lawler.
Filthy.
Filthy Tom Lawler. I'm sorry, Filthy Tom Lawler.
He broke his arm clotheslining Dominic Guarini.
That's what the tweet of the week was from a year ago. But I like that, how that suddenly, because I didn't remember what the tweet of the week was. We watched those matches and I looked last night and I'm like, oh my gosh. That's kind of funny how Tom Lawler just comes up again so quickly. All right, I have a new tweet for this year. At Cody Deaner. This is from February 8th. Dear young wrestlers, I know you want to be a wrestler in the future, Mason. Mm-hmm. Take the time to appreciate and thank the non-wrestlers at your next event. I don't give these people enough recognition early in my career. Announcers, music guys, backstage helpers. Without these people, the place you're working simply wouldn't exist. And it's true. If you didn't have all those people setting up the ring, putting the whole event together before those people get there, you wouldn't have any of this thing. No. And we obviously know some of those people as well, because we actually see them. Obviously, some of them get to wrestle as well. We've seen some of the crab wrestlers who help set the ring up and different things, help do different things, and then they get to be part of the event as well. But yeah, certainly something that I think, not just for wrestlers, I think as fans as well, when we get the chance, we need to be far more appreciative of those people and get the chance to say, hey, thank you for what you do, because they make a great event for all of us. So I thought that was something that was worth picking out for this one. All right, match 8. Are you smarter than a 4-year-old? We have Chad and Diesel with us from View from the Top Rope. Hi there, guys. Good afternoon. How are you both?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Graham and Jackson?
Oh, we are doing very good. How are you doing, Chad?
Fantastic. Fantastic. Rocking my old man cardigan and feeling very comfy because it's cold and snowy outside here in Wisconsin.
Oh, I can certainly believe that. Now, I know that you said on Twitter probably a few weeks ago that you wanted to appear on more podcasts, Chad. So I know we penciled you in at that point. And then seeing as we're doing the 1-year anniversary of MGB for this episode, it kind of made sense that you guys came on for this one. And I actually wrote down in my notes, how has it been a year and we haven't even talked to you guys? This is the first time I've actually physically talked to you. I have no idea how that took so long.
I blame Chad.
All right, so it's equally surprising to you guys as well then on that basis. Now, I was actually trying to look back. We've put in, and you don't know anything about our episode at all yet, we've actually looked back at our very first episode, which actually was on YouTube. This is before, I think this is just as Visionaries Wrestling Network was being announced and planned. And I tried to find clips from View from the Top Rope where you actually announced that we were going to be on, and they're lost episodes. They're not there anymore. I don't know if you realize, if you look on iTunes, the earliest it goes back to is June the 12th. So we have no evidence at all. So we don't have any clips at all. I can't find anything. We don't have anything mentioned as far as I could tell, and I wasn't going to listen back to all my old clips. So I guess I wanted from your perspective then. What can you remember about the setup of MGB? How did MGB come to join the Visionaries Wrestling Network?
In getting MGB onto the Visionaries Wrestling Network, it was right at the beginning of the formation of the network. and I had seen a tweet from you, Graham, saying that you were planning on starting a podcast with your son. And I was like, well, that's a really interesting concept. I feel that'd be a really good thing to have on a network, as it diversifies the network greatly by having some kids on there and having that different perspective than what we have as adults, because we're all jaded by the time that we're the ages that we are, and the children aren't jaded.
Yeah.
So I was like, that would be a great concept for, something for the network, and I'd love to hear what they have to say. So immediately, I sent you a tweet going, if you have any interest in joining the network, we already have, this platform and everything like that. We'd love to have you on. And I know you had to ask the boss, as you said, but then it came to be that you all joined up with the Visionaries Wrestling Network. So I remember reaching out to you right away, I told Diesel, I was like, I'm going to reach out to them. I think this would be a really good move for the Visionaries Wrestling Network in our early stages. So that's what happened.
And that's pretty much how I remembered it as well. I remembered, and it seemed like everything was a rush those first 48 hours. From me not even knowing Mason even had this as an idea, to him saying, oh, we should do this. Me putting out a few feelers on Twitter. And I think it was within 48 hours, even before we'd recorded a single thing, that you asked, hey, would you like to join? And like I said, I asked the boss, and his smile. He was like, he had the biggest beam he'd ever had. He thought that was just like the coolest thing. And I think the hardest part afterwards was staying quiet, because it was still a few more weeks until the network was actually set up. I think April 1st was the first date, right?
Second.
April 2nd.
April 2nd.
We're actually in talks about that right now. It's actually about to be the year anniversary of the Visionaries Wrestling Network. Fun fact right there. We'll give you that right there for your year anniversary.
So yeah, I remember that came up, but yeah, and I remember the other one, the clip that I was specifically looking for was, I know that you did it as a tease on the previous episode of View from the Top Rope, that you said, we're going to announce our first people onto the Visionaries Wrestling Network. And I was like, I'll be interested to see who's going to be with us. And when you read our name out, oh my gosh, I was absolutely shocked. I was like, you're bringing us out first? I was like, that puts a lot of pressure onto us. But no, that was fine. It was all good. And I guess we were the first official, I guess you guys are obviously the first official members, but we were the first announced members who were joining you on that platform. So I thought that was really exciting.
You guys and the Ringside Rant and RJ, because for a long time before the network started, we just started piggybacking RJ's show on the back of our show.
Yeah.
And that was so it was you and RJ who, kind of helped start us off with Visionaries Wrestling Network.
All right, so we got a little bit of our history lesson there, so we can fit in this with the rest of this 1 year anniversary. So we've invited you today because we want to play Are You Smarter Than a 4-Year-Old? And I always try and come up with something that has at least some relevance to the guests that we actually have on. So with you guys being from Wisconsin, obviously my first thought was, it was Green Bay Packers. That was my first thought. My second thought though was cheese. So we're going to play a game today of wrestler or cheese wrestler. Now, have you any idea what a cheese wrestler is?
No, I don't.
No.
And I have to admit, when I went into Google, I thought this is a very weak link. I'm hoping there's some sort of organization that's called cheese wrestling. I've heard there's a pizza wrestling, so I was like, hey, it's possible. Now, actually, it's got nothing to do with that at all. Now, cheese, you like pizza wrestling? You like the sound of that, Jay? All right, we'll look that one up for you later then. Now, cheese wrestling is a spectacle where the heavyweight champions of the cheese world battle for the attention of your senses in the wrestling ring of taste, i.e. your mouth. So essentially they're just cheese tasters. They taste, they give their ratings, and they decide what's the best cheese in the world. So somehow I managed to find these names. It was this is from the 2011 Cheese Wrestling Championship. The first event was held on Friday, June 24th at the Gallery Homeland in Portland, Oregon. Now, that's my first part. So I had to pick wrestlers that you might not be that familiar with. I am hoping that you guys are not familiar at all with DOA Pro Wrestling, which is based also in Oregon. I guess that's my first question. Are you guys, I can see a shaking head. That looks like a good sign there. Are you guys familiar with DOA Pro Wrestling?
I think I've heard of it, but no, not in the slightest. I don't think I've ever watched an episode, or I've never seen a show from them. I know that.
Whew, well, there's a relief. Now, they are actually having a match tomorrow, as we're recording. They're having the Masquerade Brawl on February 14th, which is also nicknamed as the Valentine's Day Violence. So, here's our wrestler. So you can either say wrestler or cheese wrestler. Or you can say cheese taster, whatever you want to do. Jackson, you can just say wrestler or you can say cheese, or you can pretty much say whatever you like, okay?
I'm gonna say cheese.
Hey, that works just fine for me, okay? We're going to let the guys go first, and then you're going to give your answer second, okay? And this is really where I wish I had...
I'm gonna go third.
You are going to go third, okay? So I'm going to read you the names, and then you just got to make the decision of who you think these people actually are, okay? And let me have a look. I believe we have 8 people. Yep, we got 8 people for this. All right, Chad and Diesel, you can decide who wants to go first between you guys, or you can just take it in turns, and we'll leave that up to you. If you feel confident, you can give an answer. We'll play it by ear for this. All right, number 1, Brian Rudd.
I'm gonna go cheese wrestler.
Okay.
I'm going to go actual wrestler. I feel like I've heard that name before.
Okay.
So I'm going to go actual wrestler.
Okay, Jackson.
Cheese wrestler.
You're going to go cheese wrestler as well? All right, I'm going to follow Matt's advice and not give the answers until the end, okay? So we're going to keep going. Number 2, Chris Riddick.
I'm gonna go wrestler.
I'm going to go wrestler again.
Okay. Jackson?
Cheese wrestler.
I'm going to go cheese wrestler. Okay. All right, number 3, Damon James.
I'm gonna go wrestler.
Just to be a contrarian, I'm going to go cheese wrestler.
Okay. And Jackson?
Cheese wrestler.
Are you going to say cheese wrestler for every single answer? I guess we'll find out in a minute, won't we? Sometimes you don't always take this as seriously as you might. But all right, it's your game. You can play it however you like. All right, number 4.
Strategy. You don't know. Guess all the same.
There you go. You're guaranteed to get at least 1 right, you would assume, or possibly half right, but we'll see. All right, number 4, Eric Wright.
Cheese wrestler.
Real wrestler.
Cheese wrestler.
You were smiling. I knew exactly what you were going to say. All right, number 5, Mike Santiago.
It's definitely a cheese wrestler.
Santiago sounds like a cheese, so I'm going to agree with Diesel on this one and go with cheese wrestler just for fun.
Okay, Jackson?
Cheese wrestler.
We don't even need you here. You could have just sent your answers in by post or something. All right, number 6, Robert Fortner.
This one can go either way. I'm going cheese wrestler again.
Okay.
I'm also unfortunately taking cheese wrestler because he sounds like a snobby cheese taster.
Jackson, I think I know who you're going with.
Cheese wrestler.
Cheese wrestler. Okay. Number 7, Ricky Gibson.
Wrestler.
Yeah, wrestler. I feel like I've heard this name too on the Twitter machine.
We got some experts here, Jay. Are you going to go with them, or are you going to go with your theory?
Cheese wrestler.
All right, last one. Stephanie Simek.
Wrestler.
Once again, sounds kind of snooty. I'm going cheese wrestler on this one.
Jackson.
Cheese wrestler.
Cheese wrestler. Okay. All right. I am going to read you the
I got
answers.
cheese wrestler for the whole one.
You did pick cheese wrestler for everything. I am going to read you the correct answers, and then I'm going to announce what the scores were, okay? All right. Number 1, Brian Rudd was a cheese wrestler. Chris Riddick was a wrestler. Damon James was a wrestler. Eric Wright was a wrestler. Mike Santiago was a wrestler. Robert Fortner was a cheese wrestler. Ricky Gibson was a wrestler. And Stephanie Simek was a cheese wrestler. Of the 8 people, 5 of them were wrestlers and 3 of them were cheese wrestlers. I don't always put equal amounts in.
I put only cheese wrestlers.
You did only put cheese wrestlers. All right, final scores. Diesel, you started on fire, Diesel. You were 3 out of 3 to begin with. Your final score was 5 out of 8. Chad, you also got 5 out of 8. Jackson, as you picked every single person as a cheese wrestler and there was only 3, you got 3 out of 8. So congratulations, guys. You are officially smarter than a 4-year-old. I wish we could show Chad actually celebrating in the background here. This is just like Matt when he manages to beat a 4-year-old. He does almost a similar celebration. He takes great pride in actually beating Jackson for this one. All right, guys, I want to...
I would totally be flossing right now with all eyes. But I don't have enough room right now.
All right, I want to thank you guys for appearing today. Can you tell us where to find you on social media, where we can listen to the podcast? I think we've been designated over to Diesel at this point, so go ahead, Diesel. Where can we find you guys?
Yeah, that's pretty much my job on the show. So you can follow Chad on Twitter at View from Top Rope. Follow me on Twitter at Diesel_VFTR. You can find all the shows on the Visionaries Wrestling Network on Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, Audible, and Podknife.
You missed one.
Search us on Google.
You missed one.
Probably did. Never do, but I probably did this time. What did I miss?
iHeartRadio.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the newest one.
Yeah.
It's not, burned in my brain yet.
Probably not the newest one. It's just the one that happened to accept us a long time ago, and we didn't realize, and then it just, happened. I just noticed that it was on there the other day when I was Googling us. Yeah, I Google us all the time.
I don't know if we found out by accident. We were messing around with Alexa at the grandparents' house, and we were like, play MGB Wrestling Podcast, and then it did, and we're like, what the heck? How did that do? So we found out at that point, so it was kind of a random one. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time today.
And thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. Glad to be there.
Oh, Jackson, did you want to promote? How do we find you on Twitter?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Only on the radio.
No, you're on Twitter. You're at 205-year-old live, okay? So make sure you go follow Jackson too.
And but so we said we would debut another podcast we're adding, and we're men of our words. So the next podcast we will be debuting. There's way too many B's in all of these words I'm saying right now. And there's another one in the podcast, which is the MGB Wrestling Podcast with Graham and his son Mason.
Yeah, very good friends of the show. They ask questions every week, and solid questions, and they have a pretty good show, and we're happy to have them join us here on the Visionaries Wrestling Network.
We're excited about this, people.
We're very excited. This will be, of course, a PG-friendly show because Graham's son is only 10 years old. So, of course, you can listen to this with the entire family, and you don't have to worry about any, cuss words or somebody saying any other terrible things that tend to slip out during podcasts when you're drinking.
Right. Exactly. It happens.
It happens. But so we haven't nailed down exactly what their time slot will be. We're thinking it's going to be probably Saturday or Sunday. They also do reviews of their local indie promotion, Nova, which will also be on the network. So get excited for that. So I promised you a debuting podcast, and I gave it to you. Next week will be the first week of the Visionaries Wrestling Network. So RJ's Ringside Rant will be debuting next Monday for the first time. So get excited for that. Our show will be coming out as it always does on Thursday. And then hopefully we will have the first edition of the MGB Wrestling Podcast on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
All right, so the clip that you just heard was actually after we went off air, after we did the quiz, Chad actually found the initial announcement of when MGB was going to be on, so that's what you actually just heard. Now, probably the biggest change in the year was, when we start off with the name, who knew MGB was going to be inaccurate so quickly? Obviously, Jackson became a pretty regular feature. He's done quizzes. He's even got his own little segments and things like that. And who knew that Jay would have the most podcasts of probably all of us? He suddenly ended up with 3 podcasts. I don't know how that happened, but anyway. So, you've heard our first appearances. So, yeah. Mason, would you like to hear Jackson's first appearance?
Yeah.
All right, so our 4-year-old actually appeared on episode 4. You weren't here, and this is actually what happened.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
So, it's Friday evening. Mason's not home yet. So, I'm going to try for a future host of the MGB Wrestling Podcast, his younger brother. So, first question. Do you want to tell me what your name is? Jackson Bagshaw. And how old are you, Jackson?
4.
4 years old. And as this is a wrestling podcast, do you have a favorite wrestler?
It's Roman Reigns.
Roman Reigns, that's right. And can you remember what Roman Reigns is in? Can you remember what you said? The W?
B.
Nearly WWE. That's right. Not B. E. B's for Bagshaw. Okay, do you remember any other wrestlers? You know any other wrestlers besides Roman Reigns?
I don't know.
You gotta talk to the microphone, though, buddy.
Finn Balor.
Finn Balor, that's right.
Yeah, is he in the WWE, Daddy?
He's in the WWE, that's right, yes. Do you know any other wrestlers?
Sheamus.
Oh, Sheamus, that's right. I didn't know that you knew him. And who do you have on your t-shirts? Because you have some wrestling t-shirts too. Not today. You don't have a wrestling t-shirt on today.
John Cena.
John Cena, that's right.
And Randy Orton.
Randy Orton, that's right.
Yeah.
Is Brock on?
Brock.
Who's Brock? Do you know Brock? Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar. Yeah, he's on there as well, isn't he?
And
Anybody else?
And Randy Orton.
Randy Orton, that's right. I think you said Randy Orton. And they're all the wrestlers that you know? Alright, good job. So that concludes my interview with my 4-year-old son, Jackson. Alright, give me a high five, little buddy. Good job. And I'm sure when I'm getting older, he'll be taking over my role.
Daddy, next time I can be this side.
When you're 5 years old, you can stand the other side of the microphone.
Yeah, and you be this side.
And Daddy can stand the other side next time. Okay, sounds good.
Alright, so that was Jackson. Does it for our show. We've recreated all our events for episode 1. So how we're going to exit is we're actually going to exit to our very first episode. So this was actually how we exited on Nova Pro episode 1. We will be back next week, so don't forget to follow us at MGB Wrestling Pod. You can follow me at Mr. Bagshaw, and you can follow Jackson at 205-Year-Old Live. And don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes, and all those algorithm things helps us to get more noticed. After you've heard the exit from episode 1, you'll then hear the proper episode exit that you're used to for the end, with our famous theme music now, I think, which is...
Zigzag.
Zigzag. I think that worked really good. I think we got really lucky that we found that. I really like listening to that music still.
Many podcasts I got to thank that I listened to. Probably too many to name. But like I said, we only started this 5 days ago. We had no idea what we were doing. I put out a plea on Twitter. And people who I've known for a very short time and people who I have no idea who they even were at that time tagged other people. And we've had so many offers of help. And I have been sending little messages out. Hey, how do you do this? How do you get Audacity up? What should I look at? Hey, look at this YouTube video. So thank you to all those people who've got us started. And this one's not going to be very professional. We just wanted to get it out. It just happened that Nova Pro happened. That's going to be one of our events that we want to talk about, probably on a monthly basis. And hopefully by the time we do our next one, we'll be a little more professional. We'll have the microphone working properly. But we just wanted to get the content out on this first one. Certainly email us with any suggestions that you have or contact us on Twitter. And once again, at Twitter at MGB Wrestling Pod, or you can email us at mgbwrestlingpod@gmail.com. And thank you very much for listening. I've been Graham Bagshaw.
And I'm Mason Bagshaw.
And he forgot to put it on the stop, so we can pause it. So we got our first little technical issue straight away. All right, goodbye, everyone.
It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
The music was Zigzag by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0, http://creativecommons.org/licenses/